Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrived by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 157, we sit down with Pindar Damianos, owner of Pindar Vineyards and a candidate for Southold Town Trustee. Growing up in St. James and spending time in Peconic helping out at the family's vineyard, Pindar developed a deep connection to the North Fork and its land. His family's roots in the region and early experiences in agriculture shaped his perspective on stewardship, community, and sustainable land use. In this episode, we discuss his journey in managing a large vineyard, his involvement in local community service, and his approach to balancing environmental preservation, economic development, and a long-term future of Southold. So I hope you enjoy episode 157 with Pindar Damianos. This episode was recorded July 8th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. It's great to have you on today.
Thanks, Christopher. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you. And usually just to start off in the beginning, if you could give us a little history about your background, where you were born and raised.
Sure. I'm Pindar Damianos, owner of Pindar Vineyards in Peconic. I was born and raised in St. James, New York. I was born in Port Jeff, St. Charles Hospital, and I was raised there, throughout my childhood. Mm-hmm. And then after graduating high school, I went off to college. I got my associate's degree in plant science from SUNY Cobleskill, and then came home for a year and worked at the vineyard, and then continued my education at California State University in Fresno. Mm-hmm. And I got a plant science, viticulture, and enology degree. Mm-hmm. And then after graduating, I came back home, and ever since I've been working in the family business in the vineyard.
And in terms of your family's roots, were your parents, you meant that they grew up in New York City?
Yes. My heritage is Greek. Mm-hmm. I'm Greek and German. My father was born in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, and then they grew up. Parents died young. He helped raise his siblings, and they lived on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. Grew up in poverty. They struggled, but they all became successful people and became doctors and other parts of putting themselves through college and medical school. Mm-hmm. And then they left the Bronx and they moved to St. James and started their medical practice.
That was always kind of wanting to move out of the city. And
well, I think at that time, I don't think there was big medical practice in St. James. Still very rural. Now you go there, mm-hmm. and it's very built up. But I remember my dad saying when they first moved out to St. James, there were a lot of farms still, mm-hmm. and dirt roads and things like that. I mean, it's changed over the years. But mm-hmm. I think I don't know what my dad's ultimate decision was to move to St. James or Port Jeff. I think mm-hmm. he started his practice in Stony Brook, his medical practice. It started with that, they had a home office, and mm-hmm. then they eventually opened their medical practice. So mm-hmm. at that time, I think it was just a needed thing.
Yes.
In that area. A lot of doctors were moving out and starting practices on Long Island.
Mm-hmm. And then for you as a child, was that area felt rural to you growing up there?
Yeah, so I was born in 1976. I'm 49 years old, so I just turned 49. I don't think it was completely rural. We had everything that we have now. You had the Smith Haven Mall, and, mm-hmm. growing up, it was pretty... we grew up on a rural road, and on Harbor Road, we grew up on the water. and it felt rural to me. It was
Yeah.
still a small town. I think it had everything that you wanted, but it was a good area to grow up. Absolutely. I had a good childhood, and the schools were very good, and it was a nice community to live in and be raised in.
Yes. And I think you mentioned that you would come out to the North Fork as a child to the Peconic.
Yeah, my father was a doctor at internal medicine. He had a great practice in Stony Brook. And in about 78, 79, he decided on to plant grapes on the North Fork, and he bought the farm in Peconic, the original 30 acres where the tasting room is and the winery, and planted 6 different varietals. There's Chardonnay there, still the original planting. It's almost 50 years. Chardonnay, Gewürztraminer, Cabernet, Merlot, and some other varietals, and it kind of started from there and continued to grow to where we are now.
And was he always interested in winemaking at that time?
Of course, we come from a Greek background, so that's part of our heritage wine. At that time, Cornell was planting grapes. Some of the other founding fathers were starting to plant grapes. The Hargraves were involved, and he thought that we could grow French varietals on Long Island and make exceptional wines, and we do. The North Fork makes beautiful wines that are. I've been to many wine regions across the United States and in Europe, and Long Island wines are excellent. And to have a beautiful vineyard industry, wine industry in your backyard is pretty amazing.
And then did you say before he bought it, was it a potato farm?
Yeah, we bought the farm from the Krupskis, which are across the street. The Krupski family. It was potatoes, and Long Island was very well known for potatoes.
Yes,
and that's the history of farming. Was the potato industry, and luckily that industry was falling away, and the vineyards were able to continue to farm and keep the farming and the agriculture on Long Island. Otherwise, we would have lost that a long time ago to development and housing. And I don't think the North Fork would be the same as it is right now if we didn't have the vineyards.
Yes.
I think that saved
it
the
saved
agriculture.
The land.
Yes, it saved the agriculture on the East End.
Yes.
The South Fork was farmed too, and if you go to the South Fork, it's very much different. There's not many farms left.
No.
So if you look at that and then you compare it to the North Fork, if we didn't have the vineyards, I think we would be in a different situation right now.
Yes. But for you as a child or middle school or high school, you would come out every year or even more frequently?
I'd come out on the weekends. My father, we'd be, even though he had his practice in Stony Brook, he would come out on weekends. We'd come out during the week. Over the summer, I'd work in the vineyard. I'm the youngest of 5, so all of us were involved as kids. My mom as well, and I've been since I was 6 or 7. I've been in the car with my father driving from St. James to Peconic on a daily basis, working in the tasting room. I've seen every aspect. I've driven tractors. I've farmed. I've grown grapes. I've helped make wine. So I've been coming out to the North Fork my whole entire life. So I've seen the wine industry grow and been involved in that since I was young.
Coming out of high school, were you set on going? I know you mentioned where you went to college and everything, but were you set on
my
going?
father was an educator, an intelligent person. He always told us, all 5 of us, that we could do anything we wanted. We didn't have to work in the winery. One sister is a speech and language therapist. She decided to do something different. All of us kind of found the bug or kind of fell in love with the wine industry. Me probably more because I was young and the youngest of 5. So I always enjoyed it. I think the wine industry is a great business to be involved in. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. And I always seem to have liked it. I liked every aspect of the wine business, and the more time you spent with my dad at the winery, you enjoyed it even more. So, and he was building an industry. I mean, we were building a wine industry from its infancy to what it is now. There was no grapes here. So everything that went on in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, 90s, and into now was starting from nothing and building to what we have now. So it wasn't anything that we were just bought or was established already. So how enjoyable is that to start an industry from its infancy to what it is now? It was exciting, especially in the 80s, 90s.
Because some people, I think, who I've talked to bought it more as, some people might have bought it as a hobby and then it eventually grew from that. But did you ask him what he thought of how the business evolved over the decades, and did he think it would get to this
I don't
point?
think it was ever a hobby. He would tell you, if he was alive, he would tell you it was not a hobby. It was definitely a business. We invested a lot of money into farming and planting grapes and building a winery and fermentation tanks and bottling lines and things like that. All those things cost money. So it was definitely a business. I think he was a visionary. I think if you start anything from scratch, you have to have vision, and you have to feel like it's going to be successful. It's terrible to start a business and it doesn't succeed. So I think he envisioned that it would grow, and it did. If you really see the turnaround between the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, that's really when the industry took off. And the founding fathers were there, the Hargraves and the handful of wineries that are still around with that ownership. Those were the founding fathers, and then other people came on board, and that's why the industry, I don't know, there's got to be more than 30 wineries, and I think the last count, don't quote me, but I think there's over 3,000 acres of grapes on the North Fork. I mean, that's pretty substantial.
Yes.
So as far as, was it a hobby? No, it was absolutely a business, and my father was a workhorse. He was a doctor and managing the winery at the same time. So he had a very successful medical practice at that time. I mean, I still have patients that come into the tasting room and say, "Wow, your father was my doctor. What a great doctor." So I think his love, and I will quote him, he loved being a doctor, but that was his first love, is being a doctor. And he had the compassion, and he was a great doctor and had a great practice, and just happened to start the winery too. But if you asked him, he would say if he had to choose, he would probably choose being a doctor. That's how much he cared for that profession.
Yes. And just a little bit, you mentioned studying viticulture and plant science in California, but then you eventually returned to help the family business. But what did you take away from that time away?
My father was great. I probably could have just graduated from high school and worked in the vineyard, but he wanted us to experience life a little bit. And out of high school, you didn't know what you really wanted to do. I wanted to get involved in the farming aspect. I think that's 18 or 19 years old. You like the farming. You don't want to be in a suit and tie. You kind of like the driving tractors and being outside. So that was kind of my bread and butter. I really enjoyed that part of it. My roles have changed now that my father passed away. You take on more responsibility when that happens. But at that time, my dad wanted us to experience life a little bit, and I think you need that college experience. And like I said, I probably could have learned on the job, but it was a great experience going to California. You get to see another wine industry. You get to meet other students that parents have vineyards and things like that. You get to experience a different wine industry. They do things differently there. They have different climate than Long Island, but it was really just the experience of being away and having that college experience. So I think that's important. But I'm a New Yorker from heart, so even being in California, I knew I would end up coming back to New York, even though I enjoyed school. I enjoyed what California, the wine industry, offers there, but I was a New Yorker, and I knew at some point I was going to come back. And my brother went to Fresno too for enology, which is winemaking. So both of us ended up coming back. He did other things, went to France and things like that, but I ended up coming back after I graduated and started working at the winery. I was a New York guy. I wanted to come back to New York, where my roots are.
And when did you, because you're the general manager of Pindar Vineyards?
I took on more responsibility. I was a viticulturist for a long time, 20 years. I produced the grapes at the winery and farmed. After my dad got sick and passed away, you end up taking on more responsibilities. The winery is pretty large. We make a lot of wine. Our production's pretty high. So you end up taking on more roles and responsibilities that he had. So that's where I fell into, I'd say about, my dad's gone over almost 10 years. I think that's when I kind of fell into the general manager, overseeing the whole operation instead of just the viticulture part. And I think it's just a natural progression. When you lose a parent and a family business, you kind of take on more responsibilities. And I think that's why, if he was still around, maybe I would still be farming and doing the grapes. It was a love of mine, but with his passing, I ended up, taking on more responsibility.
Yes. And when did you add the tasting room?
Tasting room's always been there.
It's always been there from the beginning.
78 to now. I mean, it was the old potato barn. It's taken some transformations over the years, some remodel, but it was the original potato barn when we opened it. I remember being a kid. When you walk in there now, you still see the old potato barn, the rafters and the wood flooring. So it still has the basement where the potatoes were stored. So it has that old school feel of the North Fork. But it's always had a tasting room. It's transformed. It's changed over the years, but that was the original building and still is the tasting room.
And with other people I've talked to that have worked in the vineyards, some of them have said it was sometimes a challenge early on getting people to try the wines and really understand what everyone was doing out here. Was that a challenge in the beginning, just getting people probably interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. If you ask my father, the reason why we did tours back in 78 and 79, I mean, he did tours. He'd do tours Saturday and Sundays, 3 or 4 times in a day, and he'd have, 100, 200 people. I mean, we were built on tours, Pindar. We had to educate people. They didn't know much about wine. They didn't know what we were doing on Long Island. And that's why you have the intro wine, which is the most popular wine on the Pindar line, is Winter White. It was an easy drinking wine with a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of residual sugar, and it was a food for everybody, or a wine for everybody, and it went well with foods. And that's why we started with that wine. It was like an intro, and you're absolutely right. Not many people drank wine on Long Island, more of a beer and hard liquor taste. So it was an education, educating the customers, educating Long Islanders about, making wine on Long Island. That was the key. And I think that my father's vision of doing tours and educating people really brought us to where we are now, to our popularity, is that we educated customers and we made wines that were pleasing to everybody's palate. And now we make, drier wines, and we make sparkling and things like that. The product line has expanded, but we still make that Winter White and Summer Blush, and it still has a big following. So.
And were you able to reach out to restaurants at the time, or what about the New York City audience? Were they accepting of it in the?
No, Suffolk County and Nassau County put their arms around the wine industry. And those wine shops that are still owned by those original owners, they always supported Pindar personally, the wine, and other wineries and the Long Island wine industry. So really, the thanks goes out to the wine shops that took our wines in its infancy and put Long Island wines on the map. That's what I believe the wine shops did. The restaurants as well too, but really the wine shops. I mean, they made the sections for Long Island wines. They moved other wines, to the left and the right, and put Long Island wines on the shelf and made Long Island sections. So, that was that's what really made Pindar popular. Is that one, we made Winter White in the 4 seasons. They were overnight success, and customers were going into wine shops asking for the wines, and that's how the brand really took off.
Yes.
And where it is now. I mean, knock on wood, we're almost celebrating 50 years, so that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then could you talk about the climate out here is kind of unique, and has it changed over time? Like, depends, like there could be getting warmer sometimes or more rainy seasons, but it's still a very good climate, or even has become, would you say, even better for wines today than in the 70s?
I think we've gotten smarter. I mean, farming is, when you're starting an industry, you don't know what varieties to plant and things. It was a lot of testing. But we're at a point where spacing has changed. The row spacing, the plants in between has changed. The new technology has come into place. We have great soils. Sandy loam. They prefer soils that drain well. We have a sunny summer and they love heat. I mean, the last week we were in the 90s. The grapevines love that. So our climate is seasonal, and you're dependent on Mother Nature. Some years are drier than others, but at the end of the year, September, October, there's always grapes on the vine. Some years are better, but that's why you have great winemakers that will work with the fruit that we have. And it is you're dependent on Mother Nature. You can't change that. So some years are better than others, but overall, it averages itself out. But any wine industry has that. You could have fires in California that destroy all of Napa's grapes, or you can have hail in the hail or rain, or it's always, you can have frost. Like I said, Mother Nature is the one that dictates how the season goes.
And just looking today, have you had more expansions in the last decade or two in terms of, you've mentioned like for the tasting room or expansion of the vineyard, or has it been everything's been pretty self-sufficient?
Well, we're like anything, generations, their tastes change. Maybe in the 80s, Chardonnay was the most popular wine that you could drink. 2025, maybe not so popular Chardonnay, more Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Grigio, less oak, not barrel fermented, stainless steel. So curves change, wine industry changes, consumers change, consumers get older, there's a younger generation drinking different products or likes certain things differently. So as a business, and we're 50 years into it, you change with the curve. So we've taken Chardonnay out and planted more Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Grigio. So we stay with the curve and what consumers are purchasing, and what we even project project down the road what consumers may want later on. More Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, different varietals, sparkling. Rosé became very popular. So tastes are always changing. And as a business owner, that's you look at that. As a winery owner as well.
Yes. And I guess what would be one of your go-to wines from Pindar that you would say is, obviously you'd probably say all of them are really
it's
good.
like picking your favorite child. But
Sure, yeah.
If my dad was alive, you always got to plug Winter White because it's the most famous one. But if I sat around the fire pit on a fall day, I'd probably have Pythagoras, which is a Bordeaux blend of Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. And if I enjoyed a great fish meal, especially being on the North Fork, I love the Pindar Sauvignon Blanc. And we just came out with a new Pinot Grigio, so that's very good too. All the wines across the board are excellent. We have a great winemaker. Across the board, the wines are excellent. It really depends. If you come and do a tasting, we make so many different wines. There's no reason that you leave without finding something that you like.
And just as the North Fork has become more, I don't know if I'd say it was more not as known, but it's become more popular, and we have more tourists coming out. How has business been over time, and has that increased with the level of like publicity that the North Fork has gotten over even since COVID?
Uh, the industry as a whole, I think, is strong. Tourism is key. I mean, we are a tourism-based industry. The more promotion of the industry, the wine industry in the North Fork is good for all. I mean, for all the businesses, the restaurants, coffee shops, things like that. I mean, tourism is what this North Fork is built on. Yes. Has it changed a little bit? Yes. Do we have more overnight guests? Yes. Do we have the same day trippers coming out for the day and visiting the wineries and having dinner and then heading back? Yes. It's always based on the economy too. Yeah, I see that tourism is pretty strong, and we're having once you get into the 4th of July, which is about 2 weeks ago, and now we're headed into the real heart of the summer, and then into the fall. I see, after the 4th, by the July 4th, you can really tell how the season's going to go, and I think tourism is up. I don't know where we are, because we're only in the beginning of the month, and I live out here too, so I see the swell on a Thursday, Friday, and then it kind of teeters off on a Tuesday. So yeah, it's definitely busy.
Yes.
People are definitely coming out, and yes, after COVID, they did experience, or they did find the North Fork, and it has grown from that point to now.
And then just lastly, in terms of the winemaking, in terms of the winery, do you have any other future projects for Pindar down the road, like long-term projects that you think?
No. I think we'll stay the course that we are. We're 50 years. You'll see new wines and things like that. Like we're playing around with other varietals, and you may see some newer wines. But we'll stay the course. We like to have the live music and things like that on the weekends, and we do tours still in honor of my dad and keep our tradition, my father's tradition, and. We stay the course, but we're innovative too. So there's always new things coming down the pipeline. So those things we'll try. As a business, you have to expand and try things. But right now we're kind of staying the course and enjoying the season, and we're busy, and we're doing what we usually do.
Yes. And now to switch subjects, you've also become involved in the community more. Community services and active in the Southold Fire Department. How did that come about?
Well, like I said, I grew up in St. James, but about 13 years ago, my son's 16. About 13 years ago, I didn't want to do the commute anymore. So I met my ex-wife. We got married and we moved to Cutchogue, and from that point on, I've lived on the North Fork. I have a son, Andrew, who's 16 now, goes to Cutchogue High School. So I have my roots in this community, and now I live in Southold. And you live in a community, and I like public service. The natural thing to do is to join the fire department. I met a lot of great people, and it was just something to do. My brother also lived in Mattituck. My brother Jason, and he was a volunteer in Mattituck Fire Department. And he was older than me, and I kind of saw what he was doing, and we got to talking, and then I ended up putting an application in Southold. And from that point on, I've been involved in that fire department, and I'm a first assistant chief, and I enjoy it. It's you're serving the community, you're helping your fellow neighbors, and I like that. So it was just a natural progression, especially living out on the North Fork. Volunteer fire department is very important. That's what it is. It's volunteer. So you're helping your other neighbor, and without it, because it's volunteer, members are very important. So
we can hear our siren now, but. Of course,
I have a son that goes to school. I was, and you're just involved in the community. When you have a child that's going to Cutchogue, and it's just a natural thing. You're in the community. You want to be involved in the community where you live, and especially on the North Fork, every town has a volunteer fire department. But I just think here, if you want to be involved in the community and get to know people too, especially I didn't grow up out here. I didn't go to Southold High School. So, you know people from the winery, but you don't really know the community unless you're living here. So how do you meet people? You go and you join the fire department. That's when you really meet the core, your fellow neighbors, really.
And I talked with some of the people in the fire department in Greenport, but they've talked about seeing even an uptick in calls in the last few years. Have you seen that in Southold increase?
Yes, just because the population's increasing, and the population is getting a little bit older too. So yes, yes, we've had an increase, but that's why we're here. That's why we sign up to do it, and we're here to help people, and they should know that. And and volunteers are always important. So if there's other people out there that are listening to this and that they have this call to service, we're always looking for volunteers. It's important, especially as older firemen get older and they can't do it. You need a younger crowd, a younger volunteer group too. So it's important to keep the fire department viable in the community and helping the community. That's the most important.
Yes, because we don't want it to where we'd have to pay and get it outsourced and have people.
Yeah, you want to get volunteers important, and everybody that signed up for this, we're serious about it. You don't join the fire department to not help the community. So these are people that have gone through EMT, firefighter classes, and things like that. They've really made it a serious thing. So the volunteer fire departments, it's very important for the community.
And also, you're running for a Southold Town Trustee. How did that decision come about for you to make that jump to run?
Interesting. I good question. My father was always involved in politics. We've always supported, the town and that part of, the community. I feel like my son now is 16. I'm 49 years old. I'm pretty well established in my life. I own a fairly successful business, a family business with other siblings. And I think it was just kind of a natural progression. You get to a point in life where you love public service. I love being part of the fire department, but I also feel like I can help the town as well and help shape that as well for the future, for my son's future, for other generations. And I've always, I'm part of the fire department over 15 years now, and I feel like this is just the next step in a community that I love. I've like I said, I've been coming out here for my whole life. So, and now I live here, and I just think it's a natural progression, and I think it's a good starting point. I think the trustees, I come from an agricultural background. I'm not a fisherman or anything like that, but I love the water, but I'm really a farmer, and I know what preservation and agriculture and preserving farmland, it coexists with our shorelines. It's you need both. You need preservation in farming, and you need preservation along the shorelines and creeks and the wetlands. And that, as an agriculturist, as a farmer, that's what you do every day when you farm grapes. You're preserving the farmland. You're trying to protect the farmland. You try to be cautious of what you use and how you farm. So it's the same thing as the shoreline. I just think it's just a natural progression and something I wanted to try. And I think my dad he's looking down. He'd be pretty proud that I took the step into politics. It's not for everyone, but I'll try my hat at it and run a clean campaign and try to get elected November 4th.
And you've touched on some environmental things in terms of how, like, the trustees' role in addressing some of these problems. But I guess what do you think are kind of some of the more urgent issues facing the North Fork?
Well, we've definitely been discovered, after COVID. So
yes.
Everybody's rushing out here to to live in God's country.
Mm-hmm.
So preservation is important. I understand I'm a business owner, absolutely. And I know about property rights. I know the importance of that. And there's a balance, definitely a balance between property rights and the environment. We have code in the town of Southold to protect the coastline, to protect our waterways, and that's important. You have to have that balance.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm more of a common sense person,
Mm-hmm.
business owner, so I think I'll bring some common sense.
Mm-hmm.
But there is code, and code needs to be followed. And the reason why we have code is to protect our environment, and that's
Yes.
important. And you have to have that balance.
Yeah.
Do I have some kind of magic wand when I get elected that I'm going to magically be able to change everything that, no. But I bring common sense. I'm willing to work with people. And I think as a business owner, it's the same thing that you would bring into this position, is that common sense. There has to be a balance. You can't do everything, and then you have to have the balance between the environment. Otherwise, this isn't God's country anymore. It just gets
It's just
swept up.
be like anywhere else.
Yes, you have to be cautious. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we want clean waters. We want
Mm-hmm.
the wetlands. We want all these things. We want agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to preserve that and you want to live here, then just you have to follow the rules and the
Mm-hmm.
code, and that's why we have trustees, and that's why we have a town board. And like I said, I'm not going to be able to walk in the front door and suddenly everything's I'm going to save the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it is a process, and that's why we have elected officials, and that's why, like I said, a balance between the environment and common sense.
Mm-hmm. And like you talk, it is a tricky balance with the protecting the environment and the rights of the homeowner. And we've had people come out, and I think there have been some issues with people saying, "Well, I can cut down trees or do whatever and pay the fine," but like you said, there are codes, and maybe there's other things that we can possibly do so that we don't lose more of the environmental to some of these.
Yeah, education's good too.
Yes,
I mean,
educating.
I understand people want to have these vistas or these green lawns along the.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just take a step back and look around and be part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Look around, and if you want to be in part of this community, just take a step back for a minute and look around. We are in God's country, and we want to try to protect that. So you can have both. You can have both, but thinking first before doing, those are things that can help balance.
Yeah, because it can, in the larger outlook, it can affect all of us as a community, not just even what's happening on some people's property, just whether our water quality, protecting our water source aquifer. In the long run, it can affect.
Absolutely. Everything that you do negatively comes back. It's the same in agriculture. It affects everything you do has a negative too. So what people's actions do affect other people. So yes, that's why we have the trustee's office. I mean, we need that protection. Otherwise, we are going to lose what we have. So it's important. It's an important agency, and everybody there understands the importance. So.
And yourself working with other fellow trustees and residents, I guess you've kind of talked about it, but just even your strengths working with other fellow trustees and residents.
Well, I own a business, so I employ 30 people or 40 people. So, I work with people every day. I'm a chief in the fire department of, I don't know how many members. And when you're on a call, you're directing people. And I'm a people person. I work in the tasting room. I deal with customers. And as you grow up, if you're in a family business or you're in the fire department, you learn how to manage people. And I don't think it's much different than that when you're a trustee. You have to work with the community. You have to listen to people's issues and try to resolve that in a positive way. I mean, it's life. I mean, I think my father I think I learned a lot from him, being a medical doctor and dealing with patients and things like that. He was a very calm person, and I think I have that same personality. I'm kind of a easygoing kind of. I don't know how to explain it. I'm a people person, I guess,
Yes.
and I don't know how you can define that. I think my personality fits well with others. I work well with others. I am not ego driven or anything like that. Or I'm probably easygoing, and I understand the job. I understand that you have to balance that personality, and I think I'm qualified for the job. I've done a lot in my life, and I have a good track record, and I think I'll bring that to the trustees. If you ask people in the community that come to the winery, they know me by name, and they trust me, and I think that carries over in any position that you have, the fire department or the trustee's office. So
Yes. And then I wanted to ask, just with living out here for a while now, what do you enjoy most about living and working out here on the North Fork?
since I did the hour commute for I don't know, almost 10 years or something like that, I love working. I'll move closer to the microphone. I love living so close to the winery, honestly. But, that's a laugh. But I love it out here. I honestly didn't think I would actually move out here. I thought I would continue to do the commute. I wasn't sure. But once I got out here and I got married and I had my son and lived in the community, I love it. And it's just a great place to live. I have the best of both worlds. I have a business that's right around the corner that I love very much. And, I love where I live and in Southold. I love the town, and I love the small town feel. I like running into people and at the grocery store and living in a small community. And I have a lot of great friends now. Even though I didn't go to high school here, I with the fire department, I have one of my best friends, lives around the corner from me, and grateful to have this opportunity to have lived in this community and continue to live in this community.
And then just looking down the line, what are your hopes for the future of the North Fork and its community? What would you hope to see?
I'd love it to stay a small town, but I don't know. I'm thinking that's not. I'm thinking that's not going to happen, but
hopefully,
yes, let's hope. Yeah, please. But I don't know. The community we have in. I would love my son to experience the same thing after he goes to college, which next year he's going to be looking at colleges and what his journey is. I have no idea. I don't know yet, but I would love for him to come back, and he grew up here, and see that generation that I didn't have that. I wasn't born here, and I wasn't raised here, but I would love for him to have the ability to come back and live here in this community, be able to afford a house and things like that, and raise his kids here if that's what he chooses to do, and
yes,
have that ability. I think that's important. It's a great community. He's got all kinds of friends, and he's grown up with, and I hope they come back too. And there's another generation of kids that were born and raised on the North Fork. That's important.
Yes, because I think people have touched on it, that
we don't want to lose the generations. I mean, there are generations here. There are families, the Krupskis, there are Szerzinskis. There's families that have been here for generations. We want that to continue. We want to lose you don't want to lose the generations that have grown up here and lived here and farmed and worked the waters and fished and all these industries that are here. You want that to be for the next generation and the generation after that. It would be a shame to lose all that.
Yes.
And a prime example is you can look in other areas. Look on the South Fork, how much it's changed, You lose that generation, those generations that have been here for all those years.
It loses that character on the community.
Values are important. This is a value. This is a community that's built on values and tradition, and that's what this community is. That's what I love about it. Tradition. If you lose that, then you just you lose that integrity. You'll lose that, and that's what's so beautiful about where we live.
Yes. I think just lastly, I'd just like to ask at the end if there are any last minute things you'd like to say or discuss that we haven't touched on.
Like I said, I'm running for Southold Town Trustee November 4th. This community knows me very well. Like I said, I'm a first assistant chief in the fire department, and I own the winery, and, ask for everybody's vote. We have a great trustee line. I hope you vote for that group and the town board, and get out there on November 4th and vote Republican and support these new candidates and moving this town forward. Like I said, I love this community, and I want to preserve it, and I want to be part of it, and I want my son to come back from college and enjoy it as well. So, and his kids as well. So,
yes, definitely. No, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today and share your story and the wonderful business you have operating out here for generations. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 157 with Pindar Damianos. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.